What a freaking swerve, right? Moments like what we just witnessed in the main event of Money in the Bank is pretty much why we like professional wrestling, right? The surprise, the shock and awe factor. It's something that you can never really get from any other form of entertainment. And it was very much so a very interesting way that WWE was able to finagle their way into having a big time surprise tonight in the Money in the Bank PLE. I kind of figured that if we weren't going to end the show with a actual Money in the Bank ladder match, something big was going to happen to where we were going to be talking about it after the show. Whether it was a return of The Rock, because if you guys didn't know, there was pictures circulating on social media of The Rock's mother being attendance. Maybe there was a return of Roman Reigns, which was something that was very much so speculated that was going to take place in the Money in the Bank match. But what we got was one of the biggest swerves, maybe not swerves, or one of the biggest corrections of a mistake from a company in a long time. Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Kevin Zwicker coming to you. Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count coming to you with the Money in the Bank post show. And remember, guys, please hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't, right? One of the things, before I really start getting into the card and dissecting my thoughts as to what went down on the actual show, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, right? And previously, my thoughts were when it comes to advertisements, whether it was, sponsorships on the ring and other different sponsorships that they've had in the past, I kind of never really cared too much about it. I thought everybody online really overreacted. Once the matches are actually going down, I'm paying attention more so to the actual wrestling than I am to the ring canvases or any other deals when it comes to sponsorship or money related issues, right? But tonight, especially when it came to the main event, things got a little bit ridiculous when it came to the sponsorships, to the point to where it was actually distracting. You see the LED barricades, you had the Morgan and Morgan advertisements, you had the 7-Eleven advertisements on the actual turnbuckles. Then you have the sponsorships all over the ring, which I'm fine with. If you watch any UFC event, you know that they have plenty of different sponsorships all over the octagon. When I saw McGregor knock out Aldo, that wasn't something that was on my mind. But it's getting to the point where it's just like, Jesus Christ, man. You saw earlier in the night where you had Gable. They shoot the segment between American Made and Gable, basically just to let you know that we're having Fireball be the sponsorship for the ladders. We had the spot in between matches when it came to the main event where you had Pat McAfee shilling the new WWE, toy ring set. It's getting ridiculous, and a report's coming out earlier in the day from Dave Meltzer, basically stating, and this shouldn't be a shock from anybody, right, who's been paying attention as to how TKO has moved. We're getting reports that we're going to get sponsorships on the ring gear, which is crazy to think about it, right? Because if you guys don't remember, when Brock Lesnar made his return, and he was the only guy that had sponsorships on his tights, the Jimmy John sponsorships, it was a big brouhaha, especially from CM Punk. If you guys remember his infamous podcast with Cole Cabana, he made a big deal about that, how he had a sponsorship lined up, but Vince McMahon ixnayed it, but Brock Lesnar has the Jimmy John sponsorship. It was a big brouhaha back then about it, and the fact that multiple years later, everything has completely changed. It's going to come to a point where there's going to be no blank spaces at all on our WWE television programs where we don't see some form of a sponsorship. And it's just getting too much, man. But they started off this show. Early in the day, we had Worlds Collide, which if you guys haven't been able to check it out, they had it on the YouTube channel. I'm sure it's still going to be up there. I don't remember if it was on Peacock because I saw it on the YouTube channel, but pretty good show, man. I like the fact that this was in the typical WWE feel. NXT, especially when it comes to the women, they pretty much deliver on a weekly basis. And the fact that you had AAA involved, AAA, let's just be real. If you guys are any type of casual viewers at AAA, they are pretty stinky for the most part. But this was a good weekend for Mr. Iguana, right? Mr. Iguana had a great showing at the Worlds Collide PLE. They showed him at Money in the Bank sitting in the audience, and this was the guy who probably have had the best weekend out of anybody in the entire WWE weekend of shows that they had, right? So we started off the show with the women's Money in the Bank match. And going into this, the way that the results kind of played out is pretty much chalk, right? Everything that went down, I pretty much in my mind had it to where I got everything right, which isn't surprising due to the fact that there was only 5 matches on this card. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to predict and get everything right on this show. But results wise, it was pretty predictable. Predictable is not always the worst thing. I know people kind of hear that term and they take it like, oh, this is a bad thing, but sometimes you need to get the predictable route for the story to make sense. But the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, going into this, it really felt as if Naomi was going to be the one who was going to win this match. She was able to do that. And the reason why I thought it was so easy to predict that Naomi was going to win this is because usually when it comes to the Money in the Bank briefcase, I feel as if that gimmick works a lot better with heels. We've seen faces in the past win the Money in the Bank briefcase, but it really is a heel gimmick, right? Where you have individuals cash it in, when the champion is at its weakest moment. That's not really something that a traditional babyface does, unless you are a Steve Austin type. Not Steve Austin himself, but the type where it's really much of a gray area. But the way that this match played out, going into it, Stephanie McCure was the fan favorite. I really feel as if that within the next year or two, it's going to be a good chance that she is going to replace Rhea Ripley when it comes to the most over woman on the whole entire WWE roster. Her and Lola Vice, they brought out the Gooners when it came to the Worlds Collide PLE earlier in the day. Stephanie McCure, man, let me just tell you something, right? I remember seeing her wrestle Mercedes at Forbidden Door in Long Island last year and thinking to myself, and at that moment in time, I was aware of who she was, but I wasn't extremely familiar with her game. Shout out to Shaq, right? And seeing her in person, I was like, man, this woman has it all, right? Obviously extremely beautiful, very athletic in the ring. Her the way that she presents herself, the aura that she has, and that's what WWE is very much so good at. Taking somebody in. And that's what they've been able to do with Stephanie. At that moment, I thought, man, this woman is going to be a star. Obviously, at that time, I thought she was going to be AEW bound, and it seems as if Tony Khan threw the bag at her, but she followed her dream, and I think that her betting on herself and following her dream has really worked out for her when it comes to the way that she has been during this run in WWE so far. Her and Lola Vice picked up the W earlier in the day. People were into it. This is her third match, and this is her third match in 3 days. You had Pat McAfee repeat that multiple freaking times. And guys, man, I'm just going to be really 100% honest with you guys. When he first came aboard, I was a Pat McAfee guy, right? I watched his show, on a pretty regular basis. I am a Jets fan, unfortunately, so his interviews with Aaron Rodgers, during Aaron Rodgers' stints with the Jets was must-see TV for me as a fan. But this guy sucks, all right? I don't know what other way to say it, man. He's just so freaking annoying, man. He has become, and you can say that about, many different, sports personalities out, right? Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, before he got Me Too, and Pat. They're guys who are just everywhere, right? They're everywhere. It's just, he's become a little bit overexposed, and I really find his commentary annoying, right? But yeah, this was a mixture of the old guard and the new guard, which is crazy to say when you have Alexa Bliss, who is still very much so a young lady. But you had the NXT Guns, Stephanie and Julia. You had Roxanne Perez. All of these individuals were going to be able to make their mark in this match. I was interesting to see Roxy and Alexa Bliss because these are two pretty much smaller individuals. I was expecting to see spots where they were going to be able to really be shifty and take advantage of their size. But it really came down to Stephanie doing what she does. She hit her Devil's Kiss move, which is the most over move in all of WWE at the moment, on the ladder to Rhea. And you had the Gooners gooning. Shout out to the Gooners. And you had Julia doing what she does best. Julia, we haven't really been able to see it. with the WWE because, their product is a little bit more on the tamer side when it comes to different, hardcore styles or hard hitting action. But we saw glimpses of stardom Julia in this match. Julia is somebody who, just right there with Stephanie, is going to be one of the mainstays in the women's division for a very long time. I'm very excited for her projections in the future. But we saw moments where Stephanie looked as if she was going to win. Then we saw moments where it looked like Julia was going to take the W. But then it came to a point where we're at towards the end of the match. And we had Naomi throw Alexa Bliss and Rhea Ripley off of the ladder into the ground, right? And then we had Naomi climb up the ladder. She secures the Money in the Bank briefcase. And all this work that she has been putting in with this new heel gimmick, which just based off of the things that she's been able to do and the way that she's been able to change her attire, get people engaged, I feel as if she is the top heel in the company at the moment. In traditional sense, it would be John Cena, right? But just based off of the work, I think that Naomi's been putting a lot of good stuff in. She's somebody who's worked very hard to get to the point that where she is at now. You remember her and Mercedes Moné walked out. She had her brief stint in TNA, which was very successful. She's come back coming off of that feud against Jade Cargill, and she picks up the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's more of when, not if, she's going to become champion. And I think that the fact that she's been able to accomplish that and really turn herself into a compelling character is a victory in herself. Naomi is our 2025 Women's Money in the Bank winner. Next, we get into Dominic Mysterio versus Octagon Jr. This is a match that was set up at Worlds Collide. Earlier in the day, we had Octagon Jr., who is a Rey Mysterio fan, who wouldn't be a Rey Mysterio fan, especially if you are a Mexican luchador. You had Dominic Mysterio at the show instigate. They sat there and they brawled, and we had this match set up tonight, right? This was a pretty fairly fast match, right? Had to be less than 10 minutes. Dominic Mysterio retains the Intercontinental Championship. The title was on the line. Forgot to mention that. After he got a distraction from Liv Morgan, he hits the frog splash on Octagon. 1, 2, 3. Octagon had a pretty decent reception. There was some carryover from people who went to see Worlds Collide and then went to see this show as well. He had a fairly decent reaction. Like I said, Mr. Iguana got the loudest reaction out of any AAA individuals. There's so many different memes right now floating around of Mr. Iguana being the guy who should have won the Money in the Bank. WWE is already selling merch, which I'm sure is going to do pretty well. But Dominic Mysterio retains. It's a fine match. Nothing too crazy. Then we get Lyra versus Becky Lynch. Backlash, my favorite match on the whole entire card, was Lyra and Becky then, and these two didn't disappoint tonight. We had that added stipulation of if Becky wasn't going to win the title, that she could never be able to challenge the title as long as Lyra is the champion. And if Lyra loses, she was going to have to lift Becky Lynch's hand up in victory. And these two ladies put on a show. Going into it, when you added that stipulation, I thought it was pretty obvious as to who was going to win. And we got the obvious outcome when it was already set up. Becky Lynch wins the Intercontinental Championship. She was able to use the tights on Lyra to roll her up. 1, 2, 3. They exchanged different roll-ups, and Becky was able to use her heel tactics to do that. But throughout the match, man, people are starting to really get into Lyra, not just because of, the whole bird lady thing and her entrance, which is pretty catchy, but Lyra can go. We saw different spots throughout this match where, they had the different pedestals where they had the briefcases set up and all these different things. And you saw Lyra jump off of that and leg drop Becky on the barricade. Becky obviously can go. She had some custom trunks. I thought the design that she had on was a Travis Scott one, but I'm pretty sure that's coming out now that it was actually a drawing that her daughter did, which is cool. Nice sentimental, right? Nice sentimental twist to it. I think that this sets up to where I think, man, if I had to really say what would be the obvious direction where this would go is we would supposed to be probably getting that one last blow off, right? Whether it be a steel cage match or a Hell in a Cell match. I think that's the direction that we're going to get from these ladies because We have so many different, emotions and so many different matches that they've been able to tell, and they've really been able to hit on every single one. Lyra is really benefiting from working with Becky Lynch due to the fact that she's gaining all this experience with somebody who has been a WrestleMania main eventer. And I think that Becky Lynch is gaining something as well, but be able to be with somebody who's a young gun and can really put on these good matches. I think this has been beneficial for the both of them. I know that they're obviously pretty close because they're both Irish women. So I feel like they're both being able to enjoy working with each other on these multiple different occasions. But they put on a really solid show. It's hard to say if it was better than their match at Backlash. I would say it's probably in the same tier, but there's a new added layer now to it that we're having Lyra actually chase Becky now and not the opposite way that we were getting told before. I like the fact that heading into this match that they were telling the story of Becky being this desperate woman, and it really just plays on the ego because think about it, like I said, Becky is somebody who's a former WrestleMania main eventer. She's a multi-women's champion. So for somebody to be so accomplished like that, being in a desperate position where they can't defeat this young gun was a very interesting and compelling way that they were able to tell this feud so far. And I like the fact that we now get the twist of Becky being the one who is being chased by Lyra and not the opposite way around. Next, we get into the men's Money in the Bank match, right? And the whole story going into this match is Seth Rollins is trying to prevent the future of wrestling to be ruined by different individuals like CM Punk and guys like him, which is strange, right? You got this match, where Seth Rollins is trying to, protect the future of professional wrestling. Then you had the main event where throughout it, they were building up saying that the future of professional wrestling is at stake, where it's just like, think about it, all these different guys who are involved in the future of professional wrestling, right? They're all in their late 30s to early 40s. Jey Uso's in his 40s. John Cena's almost 50. Cody Rhodes is knocking on 40's door down, knocking on 40's door. Same thing with Seth Rollins, right? So all the future of professional wrestling is in the hang of the balance, and it's just a whole bunch of old guys, right? But going into this match, the whole story is Seth Rollins going to be able to recapture the Money in the Bank briefcase? As we all know, he was the guy who was to be able to execute the heist of the century at WrestleMania 31, where he was able to cash in the main event of WrestleMania, and he was going to become Mr. Money in the Bank again. The way this match started off was very entertaining to me. You had all the baby faces go up and gang up on Seth Rollins, where you had Chad Gable roll out to the ring, and you had Solo Sikoa just kind of sit in the corner and watch. Then we had Solo Sikoa get in on the action and throw Seth Rollins out. Then he realized, oh shit, the babyface is about to fuck me up too. And they get rid of him as well. And you had guys like, this is why you need guys like Penta in these matches, right? Because you're going to get these highlight moments where you're going to see all this crazy shit. And we got it, right? We saw a Mexican Destroyer on the ladder. We see all these different athletic moves be put together in these matches. These matches are some of my favorite, right? And what the hell just happened? Technical difficulty. My bad. Really be able to see that, right? It felt as if we had Seth Rollins as guys, and then we got the arrival of Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo, Jeff Cobb, right? That's where we saw things really start to heat up. We had Seth Rollins as guys be able to take out everybody. Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman, they were able to call them out. And you saw Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed really get to freaking work. They took everybody out. That's where we saw JC Mateo and Jacob Fatu arrive. And we saw these big old meaty men really slap meats together. Big pause on that. We see Braun Breaker take out JC Mateo. He spears him through the barricade. And then we get to the moment, right, where it looks as if Jacob Fatu is going to assist Solo Sikoa in winning the men's Money in the Bank briefcase. Solo Sikoa, he is crawling up the ladder. It looks as if he's about to unhook the briefcase. But then we see Jacob Fatu hold his leg. And then we hear the now famous words, I hate you. And he proceeds to give Solo a case of the beats. If you guys saw SmackDown, you saw Jacob Fatu really listening in the background, where you saw Solo Sikoa and Jason Mateo speak about Jacob Fatu. You saw Solo Sikoa basically insult his intelligence and all these things. It was very reminiscent of that infamous segment that went down in 2005 where you had Ric Flair and Triple H speaking bad about Batista, and Batista ended up listening outside of the room, and we saw that to where they set it up their match at WrestleMania 21, right? So that's what went down. Jacob Fatu put Solo Sikoa through the ladder. He is done. We get to a point where it was LA Knight and Seth Rollins going at it for the briefcase. It looked as if Seth Rollins was about to win, but then we had LA Knight take him out, and then we got the tease of LA Knight winning. But ultimately, Seth Rollins was able to get him back down. He climbs up the ladder and wins the men's Money in the Bank briefcase for like the second time, right? I think that's the second time, right? This is all going to play into this master plan that they have been told. I know a lot of people were disappointed that LA Knight lost. LA Knight, man, he feels, I don't know if you guys are football fans or know about NFL history, but LA Knight feels as if he is the Marty Schottenheimer of professional wrestling, right? If you guys know anything about football, Marty Schottenheimer was a very good regular season head coach, but was never able to really win the big one. And that's what it feels like with LA Knight. He gets close. There's been different occasions where you can make an argument that maybe it's time for them to pull the trigger and have him win, but never gets done, right? Next, we're getting into the main event where the fate of professional wrestling was at stake. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul, right? When this was announced, I already had it in my mind that this was going to be a slow-paced match, right? If you saw the match that Cody Rhodes and John Cena had at WrestleMania, it was pretty slow-paced. It felt as if Cody Rhodes had to slow things down so John Cena would be able to keep up, because let's just be real at this point. John Cena in the ring is pretty washed, but he's one of the GOATs, so you give him his respect. And being able to say that you saw him on this retirement tour is an accomplishment in itself, because this is a guy who was able to really carry WWE at the longest. I don't think anybody, you include Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan, I don't think anybody was at the top of WWE for so long when it comes to how long their run at the top was. So you give John Cena his respect. This match starts off where it looks as if we're going to get Cody Rhodes and John Cena. John Cena automatically tags in Logan Paul. Then it looks like we're going to have Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes go at it. But then we see the exact same thing happen. And we see Cody Rhodes and John Cena lock up. John Cena uses some of his heel tactics. We get a point in the match where we're just seeing John Cena and Logan Paul really give Jey Uso a case of the beats. Cody Rhodes is biting his fingernails and looking very distraught in the corner. John Cena hits him with a cheap shot to hit him off of the ringside. Cody Rhodes wants to get back at him, but obviously the ref stops him. That's what's going to continue this heel beatdown of Jey Uso that they're giving it. One of the main things that you're going to take away from this match, outside of the ending, was that spot that we saw Logan Paul hit with Jey Uso. Like him or not, it feels as if there's always one time in a Logan Paul match where he does a spot where you're like, holy shit, it's fucking crazy. My bad. And that one spot where we saw was you had Jey Uso laid up on the announce table, and then from the second rope, you see Logan Paul hit a moonsault on top of Jey Uso, breaks the table down, and these two guys are pretty much done ski for the rest of the match. The referee is distracted by checking up on them. John Cena hits Cody Rhodes with the title. It looks as if that's where it's going to end the match. But we see a masked man attack John Cena, and that masked man is revealed to be none other than R-Truth, Ron the Truth killings. TKO listened throughout this whole week, in this whole weekend. We got multiple We Want Truth, different chants from the audiences, whether it was in this match or any other matches or different shows. We got We Want Truth chants, and TKO listened. Or it was one of the biggest swerves in professional wrestling that we've seen in such recent time. Cody Rhodes hits a crossroad on John Cena. 1, 2, 3. The good guys win, and professional wrestling is safe from John Cena and the heels, right? Now, what I'm interested now is going to be the follow-up. How are they going to utilize R-Truth going forward? Because is it just going to be another comedy act? Is this going to be the start of a main run for from a serious main event type run for R-Truth after they saw the love that he was getting? Is this going to result in a mid-card title reign for him? Is this just going to be a short-term extension? Is he going to sign with TNA? What is going to go down after what we saw? Obviously, he's still going to be in the mix when it comes to dealing with John Cena, but I'm really interested to see how WWE is going to treat him going forward. I thought that what they should have done now that we got this whole feud, because it looks like we're going to get a second match with John Cena and R-Truth. I think that they should have maybe they should have a stipulation like this where it's like if R-Truth is able to win, they should play it like this where R-Truth isn't under contract with WWE. He's just a guy who gone rogue, and they should have a stipulation between him and John Cena to where if Truth wins, he gets his job back, but if Cena wins, R-Truth is done forever. And whatever happens after that, obviously, I think you would have Cena win, but you could just have R-Truth sign with TNA because I believe that they'd be interested in having him around anyways. Because if you guys know, R-Truth has a vast history with TNA. First Black NWA World Champion in the company. I remember Ron Killings, his group with Conan and Road Dogg was pretty entertaining in the early days. So I think either way, it's going to work out for R-Truth. But because of the fans, he's really been able to put himself in a good spot. And it's good to see him back. I like being surprised in professional wrestling. There's a lot of times where it feels as if we can predict every single move. But R-Truth return wasn't something that many people expected. And I'm glad that TKO was able to open up their hearts, open up their ears. They kind of pretty much they probably saw dollar signs. I don't know why I sat there and said open up their hearts, right? But they probably saw dollar signs in all of the different crowd reactions that they were getting. And we're now set up for a very interesting couple of weeks at the very least. But guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. My Dave Meltzer star rating for the show is a solid 3. It's these short PLEs, man. For me, it shouldn't have been over that damn late. But maybe that's just me nitpicking, right? Because I'm becoming an old man now. But it was a solid show. The way that they were able to end it, I feel like it really was able to stick a landing, guys. But guys, I'm out. Be sure to check back into the Raw post show on Monday. We didn't have a Dynamite post show last week because it was one of those 4-hour blocks, and we're gonna get another 4-hour block this week. Unless that's kind of a little bit too late for me, but we'll play it by ear and see what's up. All right, but guys, I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out. Play it by ear.